Hey there folks, Caleb Downing with SDI, and today we're going to talk about the wonderful 4473, the firearms transaction record for FFL. So let's talk about this thing real quick. Alright, real quick is kind of a joke. I don't know, hopefully we can get through this really simply. It's really not that hard, but there's information on here as an FFL that you need to make sure you get stuff written down properly. And I'm going to tell you a couple little areas that a lot of people miss, a lot of people overlook. Even people who do this, who buy guns a lot, they miss these things just because they overlook it. All right, so let's check this thing out. All right, so when my customer comes in to pick up his firearm that I've already put in my A&D book, we've already done all that stuff, all that information's out of the way. I give them this form exactly like this for them to fill out. I give them a clipboard so they have something hard to write on, so they're not poking holes in the paper, right? And I also give them a pen. And this is something I'm gonna take just a second to talk about real quick. I learned both of these things from being a cop. If you give somebody a piece of paper and tell them to go fill it out, they might lean this thing up against a door, right? Just the paper, they might lean it up against the door. They might try to write on this, you know, foamy pad table thing. They might try to do it on their knee. They're probably gonna be poking holes through the paper. They're gonna be doing all kinds of things that's gonna make it really hard to read their writing. Talking about reading their writing, that's why I like to give them a pen, right? I don't give them a pen to keep, not this one. I keep this pen with my clipboard, all right? So they have a hard surface to write on and they have a good pen. The thing I like about this pen is it's a very fine tip pen. When people go doing their chicken scratch, it's a lot easier to decipher their chicken scratch with a fine point pen versus some big, bulky Sharpie or just a regular ballpoint pen that everything gets run together, and then at the end of the day, you don't know what they wrote. They're out the door, they're gone. You don't even know what their phone number is because they wrote it, but you can't read it, right? Having a fine tip pen, a semi-quality fine tip pen, it will save you so much trouble, all right? So that's just a little hint, a little something for you. Hopefully that helps. All right, so now that you've given this information to your customer, you're going to explain to them what they need to fill out, everything they need to fill out, and where to stop. Because you can have some customers that want to do some work for you, and they're going to try to write things down that they're not supposed to write down. You have information that you have, you want to keep that, you want to do your job and let the customer only do the stuff they need to do. So, in this situation, whenever the customer comes in, I'm going to go ahead and have this form ready for them. I'm going to have the manufacturer already written down, the model number already written down, the serial number already written down, the type of firearm, and the caliber, right? And I'm gonna have the information here. This is one gun that they're buying, or however many they're buying. And then I'm gonna leave the rest of this here blank. And I'm not gonna do anything else. If they mess up this paperwork, I can easily go back on another form and fill out this information right here. I can easily do that, all right? I'm gonna give this to the customer pretty much just like this and tell them you need to fill out section B. You need to fill out from this area down, read these questions and answer these questions appropriately, right? Then you're gonna go to the back side. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna read these questions and you're gonna answer these questions appropriately. Pay very close attention to this one, and I won't highlight it, but I'm gonna point it out to them. Pay very close attention to this question, the very last question. Read it. And I'll probably say that 2 or 3 times. And then I'm gonna say, when you're done, sign and date. And from here down, that's me. Don't worry about that. You just do this part here. And I'll ask them if they have any questions, and I'll let them get to work. So they're gonna get to work, they're gonna write down all their pertinent information, their names, where they're from, you know, where they're born, their height, their weight, all their stuff. Some people really don't want to give out a social security number. I can kind of see why, but also this is the government. The government gave you your social security number. I don't really see a problem with that. It just helps things along. If a person has a very common name like John Doe, John Smith, right? You're probably going to want to encourage them to put down the social security number, because that number distinguishes them from other John Does, other John Smiths, right? Because it can make the background check go a lot quicker if you have a social security number instead of just the name and date of birth, because there could be other name and date of births at the same date, but not the same social security number, right? Something that people miss a lot, I'm gonna say this right here, ethnicity. A lot of times people will look at ethnicity and they'll say, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Native American, I'm whatever, and they'll answer this part. Well, they miss this part. Are they Hispanic or Latino? Are they not Hispanic or Latino? A lot of times people miss this one. I'm gonna back up a little bit. A lot of times people will miss this section here too. This is the section that says county, parish, or borough, right? What county do they live in? This happens up here all the time because the name of the county is the name of the city that we live in. And so a lot of people, they'll write down the city, right? They'll write all that information down, but they will forget to write down the county, right? And you have to have that information. This is an incomplete form if they don't have that information. So make sure that they write that information down, right? Then they'll go through here, answer these questions appropriately. And the other thing that people tend to get wrong a lot, is they just get so used to answering these questions, right? They just end up going through and checking through all this stuff. If you look down here on this one here, this is a kind of an I got you question, right? It says, are you an alien who has been admitted to the United States under a non-immigrant visa? Well, if they say no and they mark no, they are not an alien, right? They're an American citizen. They're not an alien, all right? Then a lot of times they're gonna read this question here and say, if you are such an alien, yada, 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 well, I'm not an alien, so I'm just gonna go ahead and mark no. Well, that is where a lot of people mess up because in the parentheses right here, it says, US citizens, nationals, leave this one blank. So don't write in this section if you said no. People get that wrong so many times. I'm shocked that there's not memes. I think there's not memes because the FFLs are too busy redoing paperwork instead of making memes. They need to read that information, and that's why I will tell them when I give them this paper to read this carefully. And I'll even sit there when they're getting close to that question, and I'll say, hey, make sure you read that question. Make sure you read that question, right? I don't coach them in what they're supposed to say and write down. I think that would be highly illegal, and do not do that. But I will encourage them to read the question. And a lot of times they'll catch themselves and be like, oh, yeah, I was gonna mark that. Do that, make sure you do that, all right? All right, from that point, make sure that they sign and date, and they are done. That's all they need to do with that paperwork. For you, make sure that you spend a quality amount of time making sure you legibly write in the proper information here, right? Whether it's a handgun, long gun, or other, right, receivers, all those other things. Make sure you put that information down in there. Make sure you get their driver's license number, right? Make sure it's all up to date, everything's good. The address on the driver's license number matches the address that they give you. There have been times where people move, and if they move, they need to bring you some kind of proof that they have moved and they have a current address at that new place. Also, it's a good idea to just tell them to get their driver's license fixed. They need to get their driver's license fixed to have that information current. So make sure that information is current, all right? Down here is where you have your NICS background check. This has to be done before you can turn over the firearm, right? So you're gonna write down here the date that you put in this, you either call in the information, which I've never done, I always have done it online, but the date that you transmit, however you transmit that NICS background check, right? Now, when it's transmitted, you're usually, knock on wood, usually you should get it back really quick, right? Unless there's something crazy happening, it should almost be instantaneous and it should come back really quick. If it comes back approved or proceed, you click proceed, you don't click it, you mark it proceed and make sure you very, very legibly, this is a big enough spot for it, it's kind of a long number, but your NICS background check number, you write that number down nice and legibly, right? At that point, there's nothing else really down here you need to write out. The only time you'd ever have to do anything here is if you have a delay. And if you have a delay, you just follow the instructions on the back of the FFL, or the FFL, on the back of the 4473. It tells you pretty much what you need to do. You wait a certain amount of time, and then it's up to your discretion after a certain amount of time if you can just give the firearm away, or not give it away, but do the transaction, or if it gets denied or canceled, right? There's a couple different options that you can do. And if you run into those problems, the instructions is on the back there. But most of the time, you're not gonna have any problem. It's probably just gonna be proceed, all right? So you hit proceed, or you check proceed. You're gonna go back over here. You're not gonna have to worry about this over here unless this individual has a concealed carry permit. If this individual has a concealed carry permit, then guess what? You don't have to go through all that hassle of doing that background check, right? Because that concealed carry permit is kind of a I'm a good guy card, right? It kind of covers your background check for as long as that as long as that concealed carry permit is valid. So if that concealed carry permit is valid, you can check right here, number 29, or whatever number on whatever form you've got. You can check that this is an exempt form. They do not have to do a background check. So you mark that, but then make sure you get the pertinent information from that concealed carry card. And I would say make sure you get a copy of that concealed carry permit. That's what I do, and I have so far not had any problems with that. After this portion, you're gonna wanna make sure you write down your information here. I've never really used this spot here. This is just for use by the licensee. I don't know what you would really want to put there. I've never had to do anything there. You're going to put your business name, the name that's on your FFL, your FFL number. You're going to write your name, you're going to sign your name, and you're going to date it. And this is the last thing that you want to do, is to sign, or to write your name, sign it, and date it. Because at that point, you signed it, and it better be right. So I will fill all this information out, and then I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to look at it. I'm gonna make sure that they wrote all their information down. I wrote all the information down for the firearm. They wrote all their information down for their details, right? They answered these appropriately, correctly. You inputted everything in this section correctly, and you have a NICS transaction number. If you have all that information and you did all the stuff that you're supposed to do, go ahead, write your name, sign it, date it, and you're done with the 4473. Alrighty guys, so at this point they filled out all their information. You've done your stuff as far as your A&D book, which that's a separate video that we did at a separate time. You're gonna make sure that you have a copy of the NICS check, right? You're gonna have a copy of that and a copy of their driver's license, and this is a good place as well. If they have a concealed carry permit, make sure you get a copy of that and just have that all printed on the same piece of paper. It just keeps things clean, keeps things orderly. It's a lot easier to keep track of paperwork that way, right? Again, I mentioned this in my A&D video. I like to mark the transaction in my A&D book, right? Whichever transaction that is for that video, and then for this one here, we went off an example here. This is transaction number 1, right? On all my information, on my customer's receipt, on the FFL that the firearm came in on, that's gonna be marked number 1. On the printout of their NICS background check, that's gonna be marked number 1, and that page is also, I'm gonna go ahead and print off or copy onto their driver's license and concealed carry permit or whatever else information or ID that they had that I needed. I'm gonna take that information, I'm gonna mark the transaction number on the 4473, I'm gonna mark that number 1, right? And then I'm gonna take all that information that I keep, I'm gonna keep all that stuff, I'm gonna tuck that away inside the 4473, and I'm gonna take this guy and I'm gonna file it appropriately in whatever filing system I have. I'm gonna keep that put away, keep it nice and neat, keep it put away, and keep it ordered. Keep it in order of this number, right? This is number 1 to number whatever, but keep them in order, and it makes everything very, very, very simple. Keep it neat, keep it orderly. I think there's a Bible verse about that somewhere. All right, guys, so that was a quick little look at the 4473. Some things that people miss a lot of times, things to make sure that they pay attention to. Again, you can't coach people through this necessarily. If they're, I hate to say it this way, but if they're too ignorant to fill out a 4473, they might want to reconsider buying a firearm, right? It's not something you take lightly to own a firearm, so these are not that hard. I mean, most people have filled this information out getting a Facebook account, so you can fill this information out. You just got to make sure you follow the lines, make sure you fill everything out that needs to be filled out. Make sure you read the information properly, appropriately, check the boxes, make sure you read the information, right? And that's why I tell people that so many times, and right after I tell them that, they go through and they mark something they're not supposed to mark, and I'm like, some people. Yeah, there should be a whole something about that. Right. Anyway, that's it. I hope you guys found that interesting. Hope you found it helpful. If you have any helpful tips, tricks, and stuff that you found to help people fill these things out properly, I'm not talking about coaching people. I'm talking about explaining it to people so that they can not be so daunted by filling these things out, government paperwork. It's really not that hard. You just got to do it right? If you got any helpful suggestions and stuff for people, we'd love to hear that stuff, right? If we missed something, let me know so I don't get in trouble. That's pretty much it. You guys be good, you be safe. Appreciate you guys. Caleb Downing with SDI, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next video. See ya.